Michael, welcome to the
Wow.
SquadCast.
Hey, everybody. Hope everything is as swell out there as it is in here.
Well, I hope so too. The weather here is winterish, so it's not terrible. It's just cold and weird.
It's
Um,
February. It's February. I mean,
yeah, it's fine.
it's
Listen,
February. Come on.
I live in the South now. Like I'm not used to this cold. We just 50s was good. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's a big news week. There's been a lot of announcements in comics. I think one of the I think most surprising to the general public was yesterday's announcement from Oni that they're partnering with the Gaines family to bring back the EC label. And we kind of talked about it a little bit in text. What do you want to? What is your opinion on it?
Well, yeah, you did a nice piece on it at
Yeah,
popculturesquad.com
I'm
yesterday.
gonna put that link in the comments if people want to find out all the details. But go ahead,
Oh,
let's talk about it.
and then when you're done, read my column. It's brilliant.
It is.
Um, my feeling about it is let's not promote high expectations here because okay, to me EC is the pinnacle of comics publishing,
Sure.
but it was 70
Hmm.
years ago, and we've had 70 years worth of wonderful feelings about it. When I got into comics fandom, there were like three or four things everybody collected, and EC was at the top of the list. I should point out that Barks and Justice Society and Eisner were the other three. But everybody collected it, and I knew people who had full run, people older than me, who are probably all dead now.
I'm sure.
Um, I would guess who had like double, triple collections of the EC books, not counting the magazines, which it's impossible to find a copy of issue 3 of Terror Illustrated. Is it one of the three?
Yeah,
Horror Illustrated.
there are some that are impossible. They're
They're
incredibly
very
valuable. And right
well.
now,
That's because the book wasn't published per se. It was printed, and they canceled the book, so they gutted the entire print run, except for perhaps a half a dozen copies that were already sent untrimmed to EC's offices. So
if you find them, they are untrimmed.
they are well. Somebody may have trimmed them, but they were
Oh, okay.
hand trimmed. They were hand
Wow.
trimmed. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was quite something. It was when Russ Cochran reprinted them in hardcover about, I don't know, 15 years ago,
Right.
that people got a chance to actually read it, as well as other unpublished stories. So our memories of EC are so enhanced over time, and they were big and worthy to begin with. And I would not hold that as a fish over any seal's head ever.
I
They
understand that.
they have some great talent lined up.
Yeah,
Um,
that I'm excited about that part. You know,
and I'm excited about the whole idea. I just don't understand what the EC thing has to do with it. That's all. Is it going to sell more copies? Well, maybe to geriatrics like me, but I'm not sure that it's going to sell that many more copies. Uh, we already did the second generation of EC Comics. It was done by Jim Warren and Archie Goodwin. It
sure.
was called Creepy and Eerie and Blazing Combat and even Vampirella, which had a different sort of motif, somewhat.
Hmm.
It had continuing characters. Um,
But yeah,
and
Warren.
they did a brilliant job. And in some ways, I know it's heretical to say this, but I think Archie actually did a better job scripting than the EC guys did. I think those stories are better written. And I know that's heretical, and I almost wore my EC shirt just today, just because I knew you'd ask me.
That's good. That's good. So So, like I said, yes, there's a huge, amazing group of talent. That's there. One of those people on that list is going to be on the show next week, Cecil Castellucci. So we will ask her about it. But and again, here's the thing, and this is one of the things that the new. Like I said, there's a lot of news this week. One of them is that there is this announcement. There was James Tynan's announcement of the Tiny Onion
Yes,
Studio. There are just so many new small outfits that are coming together, and I don't know how they are. Like there's this whole concept of economies of scale that I think comics since 2020 has been fighting with. Like, do we get bigger? Do we get smaller? How do we combine? Do we separate? And it's been an ongoing thing that people are doing because of what happened in 2020 and the decoupling of Diamond, essentially.
that's a
Um,
good way to put it.
I mean, that was it. That really because of that, everybody's like, well, I can do my own thing. I'm not tied to Diamond's rules anymore.
Right.
So everybody is doing their own thing, which is fantastic. And Mark, I just want to say, if you find an untrimmed magazine, see him oil.
Yeah, we'll get him to translate that for the Christian nationalists out there.
But well, that's where we are. My point is that we're in this weird state, and it's exciting that people are getting a chance to do the things they are, but it's also I'm nervous for them. I'm nervous for people to what happens if they fail? What happens if
that's true for everything, and
sure,
comics has never been a great business to get into,
of
except
course.
for a handful of people. But what's going on in comics today is very different than what went on in comics in the early 80s when the so-called independent publishers started up.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
Somebody first comics, whatever.
yeah, that stuff. But actually, Normal Man did a wonderful take on that. And it's true. Jim did a great job. And the omnibus just came out. But what's going on in all the rest of media today is is represented in comics as well. For the first time, comics is like the rest of the media world. And I'm not sure that's a good thing, but this part is a good thing. Pretty much anybody can get in. If you got a guitar and you think you can play it, you can write yourself a tune, record it, do a pretty damn good job of recording it if you pay attention to it, and put it online, and maybe you'll get noticed. You write a book, same thing. You go to Amazon, they'll publish it for you. Take a lot of your money, but they'll publish it for you. Comics now, it's like, well, okay, we can do comics because the whole model for how you print comics has changed since those days back in the 80s,
Sure.
let alone in the 70s and 60s and 50s and 40s. So more people can get in.
Right, that's good.
At the same time, publishers, the existing publishers, those who actually see themselves as publishers, have this need for more talent because the really good talent is going off doing their own thing and making their own money, I should point out, which is what they deserve. So they need more talent. So it gives young folks a greater opportunity to get in, either with the newer publishers or the smaller publishers, or to, maybe get noticed by the bigger publishers, if that's your goal.
Right.
There are all of these small press conventions. New York's MoCA is coming up next month, I think.
Yep.
It's we're just full of very gifted, very talented, very energetic youngsters who have no desire to do next.
Yep.
No desire. You want to do Spider-Man? You're going to work for Disney. You want to do Batman, you're going to work for Discovery. That's how it works. You want to do your own thing. Well, today you can get noticed. So
Mark makes a
you
point.
get a chance.
Mr.
Mark
Wade.
makes a point. That's breaking the comics is fun after you figure out how. We plaster over the hole. We do, but
That was the mantra for a while, but I think that is changing. I think what you're pointing to is there is these other ways, and there are, like I said, it is great. I'm excited. I'm excited for the fact that we get to make comics. And before we got on the air, I was telling you, like, there's piles of comics that I haven't read. I need to take like a week and just read like 40 comics a day.
oh,
And
they could ban all printing of everything for 10 years and I wouldn't catch up.
well,
Dean, do not drop your comic books in the hot tub.
that's important. Very
Be careful,
important.
because you're going to strain your back reaching over trying to save them, and it's already too late.
That's okay. He has to be more careful about not dropping them in the toilet. That's more troublesome. But they're on his phone, so that also could go in the toilet. Who knows?
Oh yeah, sure.
Let's talk a bit for a minute before we bring in our guests. We have two guests tonight, everyone. So I haven't said that. We have a couple of Marks. We're going to get to our good buddy Mark Fishman first. He's got some good news to share with us, and then we have Mark Russell, who is waiting patiently in the wings, and we will get to him and talk about a lot of stuff. But really quick, I want to talk about a couple of things that are coming out this week. And you can see this on Pop Culture Squad right now. I just want to run through the new number ones, which there's a new Alien Red, White, and Blood, which is, as Marvel does and DC, take a character and throw three stories in it, which is fine. I'm excited for this. This is the new Distillery book by Mirka Andolfo. I will be publishing a review of that this week. Mirka is fantastic. She's an amazing storyteller and a very wonderful person.
What is that about?
Blasphemous. It's about a magical genie kind of person who is also a singer. Like, so they're famous, but it's like there's a devil involved. It's kind of a Faustian type of thing.
Oh, well, there are devils involved in pop music. Absolutely.
Right. I would recommend, if you haven't read Rhodey, which was Tim Seeley and Fran Gallan's book from a couple of years ago, go get that one. That's a really good Faustian bargain devil book for rock stars. There's Zach Thompson's Cemetery Kids Don't Die, which is basically, the concept is it's a when you go to sleep, you join the video game in this reality, and one of the kids doesn't come out. So then these friends have to go find their friend that's lost in the game that you enter in your sleep. You don't actually play while you're awake; you play while you're in your sleep. So we're just never getting away from it. There's the new Edge of Spider-Verse, which is Weapon 8, which is Spider Wolverine. There is a new.
Whoa! Back
of
up.
Course. Wait, the
Spider Wolverine.
Spider Wolverine, Weapon 8. Alex Segura's on this book, so that should be fun.
Yeah, I really like his stuff. Okay.
And then there's this, which is by David Avalone and Kuberball, who are both a great pair of creators. And eventually Elvira had to meet Lovecraft. That's how it goes. This one I thought you'd be excited for.
Well, excuse me. Yes, I always am. And,
I always am.
And yeah, I think they're doing some fun stuff with their sort of multiple reality superheroes by working them into the ongoing Archie stuff in the digest books in the ongoing Archie style, and then doing these little mini series or one shots, most of which all of which I've read, most of which I've enjoyed.
Yes. I would say that we need to ask Mr. Russell when he's going to be ready for Archie, because that needs to happen. And this is a nice collection. This is all the after Kingdom Come stuff that's in a big bound book that come out today. And more Predator. Ed, I really like Ed Brisson, and I, glad he's getting a Marvel check for this. Dan Waters' newest book. Dan Waters is part of that White Noise group with Fromby and and Alex Packnadel, and I'm a huge fan of all of their works. And this one is the one we really wanted to talk about. Okay. Finally, there is a omnibus of Times Squared, which, for those who don't know, is one, if not the most, one or if not the book that Howard Chaykin is most proud of. You had left when it was published.
Not in the no. I was there for the
you were there
for the beginning of it. Yeah.
But did Rick edit it originally, or were you the editor?
No, Rick was the editor. Rick Oliver, we're talking about.
Yes.
My successor as editor in chief at First Comics, but an editor at First Comics when I was there. So, and an old friend and a good guy.
So what when you found out about this book and you were what Howard brought to you, what was it about? What were your reactions, and what do you remember from it?
Tell you the truth, I didn't quite understand it when he was first talking about it, and that intrigued me because I have I have massive respect for Howard's capabilities as a storyteller. I was a fan of his so far back that he doesn't even want me to talk about that early stuff. You know,
I have some Cody Starbuck.
Well, yeah. I mean, everything is Cody Starbuck, but
right.
except Howard's tired of hearing that.
I understand that.
Yeah, me too. So when I didn't quite understand it, I started, getting into a dialogue. And because I knew that there was a story there, the problem was me. I didn't understand it. And Rick Oliver is a really good guy when it comes to those types of details. Mm-hmm. He has a scientific background and an insurance industry experience, and he can blow up actuarial tables and understand them and stuff. And he can work this stuff out. And as the book progressed, it became very clear what was going on. But the entry level is, what if Cody Starbuck bought a really nice pair of horn rims?
Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
If he's drawing it, if he was drawing it, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And also is like all of Howard's stuff, but certainly the stuff that he does on his own completely. Sure. He's got the great team of letterers. Ken Brusinek is one of the best in the business.
He had a great relationship with Ken. I mean, he did most of the stuff, especially.
Oh yeah.
When I think all of his stuff at first.
He lettered all of his stuff at first.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I think Howard did one or two non-flag Times Square stories for us, and I'm not sure that Ken worked on those. But aside from that, yes, when we did the Shadow Ken at DC, Ken and I wasn't the editor of that. It was in my editorial group. Ken was the letterer on that, and then when we did Blackhawk, Ken was the letterer on that. Howard knows color like nobody's business, which is just weird because he's colorblind. It's all intellectual for him.
That's crazy.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Well, yeah, I understand that. All right, so my point is, this is coming out tomorrow. Go to your local comic shop. You can probably get it on Amazon. You can get it wherever you get comics. If you haven't read Times Squared, you should.
Lots of new and hard to find material in there. And I don't have a play in this action at
Sure.
all.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that I got mine by opening up my mailbox about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Which is when Howard sent it to me and to Rick, I should point out. And I am so happy. It was so nice.
Yeah. I think Dean got a copy too. Something like that.
Well, he should. He should. For having to put up with sorry, I'll take that back.
All right. Let's bring in our first guest. And he's a guest, but he's part of the show. We're gonna bring in the one and only Mr. Mark Fishman.
Yay! Oh,
Mark, welcome. How are you?
Okay. Do you like my cosplay? I'm going as Zero Mastel.
Well, I like it. I'll take that. I thought it was Topol for a second. I wasn't sure.
A little bit of both. I just to keep in character, I am selling milk to my neighbors. So.
Well, that's perfect.
That's good.
And I apologize for any chaos that happens in between.
No worries. What's up with you? What's going on with you guys? How you and the Unshavens are sticking to a weekly podcast?
Ish. Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly-ish. I think you should put that when you get a chance. You should put that in the comments section because I don't have it. But if you get a chance, put it in the comments section so people can go there and get alerted for it. How's that going for you guys?
It's going pretty well, actually. I'm just going to type it right in there. Just look it up. It's the Unshaven Rankcast. So, and we only did that because we're a slave to the fans, and the fans told us bring it back. And since enough time has passed that Kyle and Matt could no longer complain to me that they didn't understand how to do Zoom. So that forced their hand. And then the company could afford each of them a microphone and a webcam. So we're still working on some kinks, but we've put our episode 7 and 8 on YouTube. So now you can spot. There's a great drinking game that we've already started. It's called Every Time One of the Three of Us Starts Looking Somewhere Else Other Than the Conversation, You Can Take a Drink. You'll be blitzed by 10 minutes.
Oh, I'm going to try that.
Pretty fun.
You were so. Before we get to the big good news, where can people expect to see the Unshavens this year?
This year, for sure, we'll be in Indianapolis for PopCon, which is happening the same weekend as C2E2 because Chicago no longer likes us. And
that's okay. I will be in Ithaca that weekend. Are you going there, Michael?
I believe I am. Okay. But it's not that Chicago doesn't like you. It's that Reed doesn't like you.
Reed and Chicago are very different things.
That's fine.
Yeah,
I don't like Reed.
I can't say that we're super fond of them this year, but they're hot and cold. And then after Indy, we'll be going to Traverse City in Michigan. There's a con up there that our friend Jim McLean told us we just absolutely had to do. So we're going to go do that. Cherry Capital Con, I believe it's called.
I've heard of it.
And then we have applied, so knock on wood, to Baltimore this year. And there's a couple others that we're looking to. Motor City, I think we might be doing again. Kyle really wanted to go back to Toronto, and Matt and I had to tamp that down because we've done Canada 3 years in a row. I'm like, we don't have anything new. I don't want to roll the dice just yet. Well, we'll have to do stuff next year, though, so we'll be right back.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but
you do 2 Canadas next year.
Toronto is such a wonderful city. I would use any excuse to get there.
We loved it, and I'd say, and we tried last year. We went to Winnipeg, so we can safely say we've done 2 cities in Canada, the ones we can drive to.
That's good. That's good. All right, so hopefully we will see you in Baltimore, and that would be awesome.
Yes.
And What's the big news? What are you doing in May?
So, this May we're taking. I guess to say the pun is intended. We're gambling on ourselves. We're rolling the dice, and we're going to the licensing expo. So, this is one of those things that I want to say maybe about 8 years ago we had tripped over and found out about, and at the time thought, and this is maybe like right after we had just come up with the idea of the Samurnauts, and we're like, oh, this would be something that could go here, maybe. And then they told us the price for a booth, and we said, we'll see you in 10 years.
Right.
And it just so happens that I subscribe to their newsletter, and I'm, since I'm marketing by day, all this stuff is always super interesting to me anyway. Well, they had one of their emails. The email was promoting, get your brand in front of the people that are making action figures. And I was like, that's us. We'll do that. So I signed up for it. And I had a talk with a lady who turned out immediately to work for the show. And the whole shtick was to try to get you to get a booth there. And I very politely told her, oh, we can't afford something like that, citing the price that I recognized from however many years ago. She goes, oh, well, we have a bunch of affordable options now. It's been a while since we had a show that was only locked down like that. So she and I worked something out where I brought it up to Matt and Kyle, and I completely prefaced it to say, like, you can say no immediately, we'll just drop it. And of all the people, Kyle says, we're getting old, let's do it, let's see what happens.
Wow. Well, that's true. You guys have like thousands of children and stuff. The licensing show is weird but interesting. It's weird on a lot of levels. You can't believe people are making all this shit, and some of the stuff that you really, really can't believe is going to be bestsellers. So you got to get off your high horse and look around. Also, I met a lot of interesting people, including John Wayne's son, who looks just like John Wayne. And I had the privilege of escorting him over about 20 feet to where the booth was that was promoting Che Guevara as a licensed figure. T-shirts and that sort of stuff. Now, it just so happens I have a Che Guevara T-shirt. I used to wear it to all of my, all the times they'd call me for jury duty. For some reason, they never picked me. But
Good job.
Taking John Wayne's kid to see Che Guevara, life doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be that lucky, but it's funny.
You never know. You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
It turns out my day job actually landed one of the accounts that we worked for at that show last year. So it
there you go.
It works out in everybody's favor. So we're going to give it a go, and we're making all the plans right now, and it's enjoyable enough to see how three very frugal Midwesterners attack Las Vegas in just the most ridiculous ways.
I'm looking forward to a lot of.
I have 4 words for you when you're talking about being frugal. In and out burger. That's all you need to know. Adrian, who is the HBIC of this organization, stops at In-N-Out Burger on her way from the airport and on her way back to the airport.
Yeah, we're working out the details. And I said, if not, the 4 words we were thinking is sleep in the car.
Oh, yeah.
But,
there's a lot of that in Las Vegas.
Probably. I mean, it's enough to say, like, it's fun now that we're just over that hump where we're old enough now where we can just, like, get mad for no reason. Like, we were looking over the show is at Mandalay Bay, and we're looking to stay at the Luxor. One of the top places to commit suicide, by the way. And we found out that all the Strip charges a resort fee, which is anywhere from $20 to $40 a night. And it's tied to like certain amenities, and it's, the pool and this, that, and the other. And of course, perfectly, Kyle chimes. He's like, "Well, could we call them and say like, we won't go to the pool, we won't use the gym, like we're just here to go to the show." I'm like, I don't think they'll take it. And then we looked at it and said, "Well, they also include Wi-Fi," and he's like, "Well, okay, fine, whatever." But I said we have a whole show and a couple of appearances before Vegas. So I'm like, the company will make a little extra scratch, and we'll just, I said, Kyle, you're just going to have to work a little extra hard, and Matt, you have to make those 2 or 3 sales you get per show.
Not being nice to Matthew.
Oh, he'd be the first one to admit it too. And the funny part is when we were telling him about the Vegas show, and he was at first he's like, well, maybe Mark and Kyle, like Mark, this is clearly your thing and the marketing and all that. And Kyle's a salesman. He'll get up there and he'll pitch. I don't know really what you'd want me to be there for. And Kyle and I, without even pre-discussing the joke, we're like, Matt, you don't understand. You're there to drink for us. Like if we get lucky and someone actually wants to talk to us, you're the only one who can handle this. And he's like, all right, my body's ready. Finally, my purpose.
He's manning up for the job.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark, for being here. We absolutely love this. We're happy for you guys. We're excited.
You're hooking him?
I'm not.
Giving him the hook.
We've talked. We kind of pre-talked. Well, Grayson's, being Grayson. He wants to let everybody.
I would definitely hang out. But I can say this, like for every minute that, like in this particular hour, it just when you guys record is when all of my children are still awake. So every minute that they're not in between these rooms, there's like a bubbling chaos that if I don't burst the bubble, my house will implode.
I understand. Tell them that you've just moved to the Eastern time zone.
I can see if that works. Hey, is any of those children over there? Nope, they're not answering. But now they won't. So Mara came by. Well, I was sitting in the waiting room thing, and I guess whatever she had for dinner must have had jelly in it, because like the entirety of her face was just blackberry preserves. I was like, that's camera ready, baby. And like, she is truly the queen.
How old is she now?
She's a little over 2.
Wow.
Years? 2 years?
Yeah. Yep. So I've got a 2, a 5, a 7, and a 12.
I got a 48.
It's okay. Every day they find.
I didn't need to know that either, because that's her age bothers me as well. So they all. It just means I'm older. I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day who. His birthday's on Friday. We're the same age. Mine's not till May, and I said, I have today's my marks. So there's, we have 2 marks on the show. My mark is 23 today. His is birthday, so happy birthday, Mark. But and I have a kid. My oldest one's getting married, and I said to my friend, I think I'm finally older than you, because it just feels that way. We all just keep getting older and older. Anyway,
not forever. You get over that part.
Oh, then you just stay. You stay old.
No, you actually kind of turn to dust.
Okay, that doesn't help the situation, Mike.
All right. Well, we'll leave with one kid saying hi. Say hi.
Hi.
There you go.
Hey,
that's Spider-Man.
And that's Mike. Yeah, you're Spider-Man.
No.
You're not. So why are you wearing?
You have a Spider-Man shirt on.
Yeah, you're wearing Spider-Man. You don't know.
He wants his clothes back.
Yeah. Oh well.
All right, Mark. We will see you again shortly.
Yes.
Soon we'll have you back on. We'll talk about whatever else is going on. We do need to talk. We do need your updates on wrestling. So next time we definitely need a wrestling update. So.
Oh, I'm ready to go on that.
I'm sure.
I've not. We're okay.
We needed to get this big news so people can be excited about what's going on with Unshaven Comics.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
All
right, we'll talk to you soon.
Say hi to everybody. Everybody.
All right.
Absolutely everybody. Just stand on the street.
There's a lot of them.
Say hi to people.
There's a lot. You should walk out, and just do that. That sounds perfect. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. I'm excited about what's going on with Unshaven Comics. I'm looking forward to them making more new and cool stuff and getting out there and sharing it with people. We are going to bring back a someone who's a returning guest to our show, someone who I consistently enjoy talking to, and without any further ado, we're going to bring in Mark Russell. Hi, Mark. How are you? Thanks for hanging out.
Hi.
Hey, Mark.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Hey, good. The only reason I'm wearing a headphone is because you're all wearing headphones, so the peer pressure got to me.
Okay. Well, thank you.
It's a Doctor Who thing.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, for better or for worse.
I as I was, kind of doing your promo video, it's just I had to leave stuff out. There's so much. There is so much. You have been so prolific over the past 10 years. It is.
Well, you have to be, otherwise you starve to death. So you have no choice but to keep writing.
Yeah, but we're talking about some of my absolute favorite books being done today. And I mean, I was just looking at Bob's little display there, and it was wonderful. I'm going like, yeah. And then, traveling to Mars, which I think is about me. And
that's good.
What are you doing
I'm
next?
glad. I mean, it's not good, but it's, it's a highly personal comic. So it's good that people see themselves in it. Hopefully not because of the terminally ill part, but otherwise, I hope people do see a lot of themselves reflected in it.
Actually, we're all terminally ill, as I just sort of said a few minutes ago.
You're right. There's no getting around it.
There's no getting around it. And that's sort of a really interesting way of handling it. And the entire situation itself is one that the reader is going to think about from the first page. As soon as you understand what the story is about, you can put yourself in that position, unless you're in total denial that you'll ever drop dead. I got over that a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I wanted you need to know that whenever Traveling to Mars comes out, Mike tells me, "Oh, I got to read Traveling to Mars." Like it's the first thing that he needs to read whenever it's coming out. Like in private conversation, he loves that book, and he tells me all the time how much he loves it. And the last issue is coming out next month. Am I right on that?
Yeah.
The issue 11. Issue 11
is a weird number for a series, but originally we were going to end it at 10, but there's just too much stuff to go into 10, so we made it 11.
So
I admire that, because there's no reason why it shouldn't be 11 if that's what the story takes. All the marketing reasons, it works. You can make your trade paperbacks. It's fine. Great, go for 11. Jeez, it's just a number.
Yeah, one of the advantages of going with one of these new independent companies like Ablaze is that they're open to things like that. It's like, you need 11 issues instead of 10. Fine. You want to tell a story about a terminally ill man trapped in a spaceship going to Mars without any laser battles or like any sort of like traditional science fiction like stuff. Fine. And in a lot of ways, I feel the fact that they've sort of given me the freedom to write the way I want it, with as long as I want it, has made it, I think, possibly the best comic book I've ever written.
Really, you feel that way? That's I mean, that's fantastic that you
If
were able to
if
identify that.
if not, then
Well,
definitely a top 2 or 3.
yeah, but that's a list that'll always change. I mean, if you're doing
Yeah,
Hopefully.
something
hopefully it's not.
tomorrow,
Hopefully, it won't be the best one at the end. But I think it's all
yeah, that's right. That's right.
the ones that I feel like the strongest about, the ones that I feel like this is the best thing I've ever done, are usually the ones that are the most deeply personal, where I feel like I'm spilling most of my own guts onto the page. So, but maybe the reader has a different experience. Maybe the reader's incredibly bored by it. I don't know. I just know how I feel about it, and I'm wagering that I'm not alone. That I'm not so original, or that somebody else is going to see in it what I see in it.
Well, the first thing they teach you in creative writing class, which, by the way, I dropped out of, uh, is to write from your own experience. So it's not so much that you're writing for yourself, which is what a lot of writers say. You're writing from yourself, and
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, and it's not
that's where the best
experiential.
stuff comes.
It's just about. I agree. I think that's exactly the right. It's like you're writing from yourself, and it's not
Right,
that these are my experiences or I'm writing stuff I know I'm an expert in. It's more like these are the things that keep me awake at night. These are the things. These are
right,
my hopes, regrets, and dreams. And I feel like those things, which are that the things that eat at you the most, are the things you have the most to say about.
right. That's usually the case. Or you need to see a shrink. One of the two.
Yeah.
Or both.
I mean, I might not know
Yeah,
what I'm
or both.
talking about, but I have a lot to say about it.
Okay, there's a lot to get to, but I want to get to Rumpus Room for a minute, which I finished today, and I absolutely loved it. There's a thing you have about billionaires. I was talking to my wife earlier, and she was like, "He has a thing about billionaires. He really doesn't like them very much."
Well, it's
And
not even that I don't like individual billionaires, although they're usually pricks. But
right,
it's not really about personal animus with billionaires, as it is about a system that creates these sort of Nero figures and just sort of
yes,
hands the keys to human destiny to them. It's like we shouldn't be putting our fate as a species in the hands of people who have been surrounded by acolytes and yes men for the last 30 years and have no idea what's true anymore.
yeah,
Well, you're referring to businessmen now and not politicians.
no, same people.
Yeah, I mean,
I,
I think you could make the same case,
Mm.
but I feel like that's ultimately what all my comics, all my social commentary is ultimately about, is about how the institutions are always failing people because the institutions are led by people who forgot what it is to be human.
right. If they ever knew. The,
Yeah,
the
if they ever
problem
knew.
with the problem with Mr. Trump is that he never knew.
No,
He has no idea what humans do or think, and he couldn't care less. Um, I've known a couple of billionaires who are really nice people, great people, and it took me a long time to get over my prejudice. Well, if you're a billionaire, you therefore must be at the very least an asshole. Well, these two guys that I'm thinking of were just great people. So you got to keep an open mind.
Yeah,
most
I don't. It might be the best guys who ever lived. It doesn't change the fact that they should be able
Right,
to decide whether or not human beings colonize Mars or cure cancer. I don't think they should have the sole vote on that, which is
right,
kind of my
exactly.
position. It's not really a personal referendum on the quality of billionaires as human beings, but a system that like hands all of our human priorities to somebody who just happened to like get into computer programming at the right time in history.
right, right. Or happen to be in the right dorm room. That's where we're getting it now.
Yeah, or inherited, well,
Right.
came out, the right woman and inherited a pile of wealth.
Right. There's
Absolutely.
something it's weird how these things go. There was a conversation at my dinner table tonight that I said that I wanted to weigh in with you on. And my youngest, or my middle son, I'm sorry, who it's his birthday today, as I mentioned earlier, that Mark is taking a philosophy of politics class, and he's just read Hobbes and Locke, and now he's debating them. And
Aha.
it was a very interesting thing. Now we're going way into the weeds here. We're going way into things, but like the concept of Hobbes's, everything is at war, and that the natural world is not the place you want to be. You want to be in a totalitarian, authoritarian state with a sovereign, versus Locke's idea that there is personal ownership and there is personal freedom and so in the natural world where it doesn't have to be war. And I thought that's very interesting, because a lot of those very base things that have been expanded on in time are underlying themes to some of the work that you've done. Particularly, I think Sonia is one of those things.
Yeah, and I feel like,
and others.
right, and like Rousseau is even more of an antipode to Hobbes than Locke was.
Sure.
Rousseau kind of felt that we are these noble creatures that are born in nature, and it's society that corrupts us. And both Rousseau and Hobbes had the poor luck of being born before there was any such thing as anthropology. So they're making these wild sort of conclusions about human nature, not really knowing anything about the history of the human race before, say 3,000 years ago. So
everything,
very little about
everything
that.
From
what people believed. By
so they were really judging.
Now I was just going to say, even 150 years ago is laughable today, until you think 150 years in the future. And then those guys
we're
are
all
looking at us. Yeah.
True. Yeah. But I think that, and they did the best they could. It's like when somebody reads the histories of Herodotus, there's all these things that are just ludicrous, that are just like, there's no way, he talks about how they use giant ants to find gold in India and things. And it's like, oh, that's quaint and silly. And what fools for ever having believed that. But he was really doing the best with what he had available. All he really had to go on was what other people told him. So he's just trying to cobble together the information as best he have, and we all are. And so we have to take that in mind whenever we form our worldviews. It's like, this is cobbled together with the tiny bits of information we're able to gather in one human lifespan from people who may or may not be the best sources. So it should be an evolving concern. It should be something. It's not like, well, I have the answers and everybody else needs to conform to this or die. It's more like, I want to enter my opinions into the great river that is the human conversation. And they might seem silly 100 years from now. They might seem ridiculous. But you won't have gotten to that point without first having to suffer through my idiocy.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And if they don't look back at us and think we're a bunch of fools, then they've screwed up.
We failed.
On them.
We failed. That's our job. Our job is to set ourselves up as yesterday's apes.
Oh,
it's
right.
Like,
yes.
If you to make sure they understand, to give them a platform from which to improve the human race's view of the world.
150 years ago, surgeons did not wash their hands before an operation. Today, you can't even imagine such a world. Here, you might be able to.
Well, maybe in Arkansas. Yeah. Florida, maybe.
Hey, we know people who live in Arkansas.
I'm just.
Yeah, we do.
I'm just joking. Yeah, believe me, I live in Oregon. There's plenty of we're a glass house.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's what makes America great. We're all wacky.
We all live in a different glass house.
Before I forget, I wanted to tell you there's a podcast out there called Stuff You Should Know. And they did a great episode on Dorothy Parker.
Called what?
It's called Stuff You Should Know. And like it's just like, normal things that are part of everyday life that, where did that come from? So they did a great episode on Dorothy Parker, and I thought about it, and I thought about it today to tell you because I was in the final issue of Rumpus Room. You referenced her in the Algonquin Roundtable, so I thought you might find that interesting. I want to talk about some of the new stuff that is coming out because there's a lot of it. There's so many new books you have coming out, so I want to bring them in, and we'll talk about them. First of all, most importantly, this. I've been waiting for this since you first told me about it a couple of years ago, I think by now. What are we going to see in the Dark Age? It's not, I want to be clear, it is not the same Earth as Space Age, or is it?
Right, but it's not the same Earth as Space Age, but it's a similar concept. This is in one of the universes that doesn't make it to Crisis on Infinite Earths, and it tells the story of that world, that Earth, through Batman's eyes instead of through Superman's eyes, which was the premise of Superman Space Age. So it tells, very much like Superman Space Age, it tells the life story of Batman up until the destruction of the universe, in about his rise, his sort of philosophical path to becoming a superhero, and why he continues to do it, knowing that it's all going to be for nothing ultimately. And
the experience you had with Mike Allred on the first one was something you obviously wanted to come back for. What is his perspective on this book versus the other?
Well, I think this is kind of in a way more in his wheelhouse even than Superman was, because he's very much a creature of sort of 60s pop culture. He's a huge fan of the Adam West Batman series and the whole Bat family. And there's so much like 60s and 70s pop culture that sort of percolates or comes through in this, that I feel like this is more of a natural playground for him than even the Superman was. And I thought he knocked that one out of the park. And I will say it's like the highlight of my week. The highlight of my week is when I get new pages from Batman from him. I'm just hoping he gives me an original.
When does this come out?
I think
March 26th.
March. Yeah, about a month from now, this one comes out.
End of March. March 26th.
We're very excited about it. This is, I think, what you were mentioning, Mike, when we were talking. There's something going. Tell me about this, and how is this a one shot, or is this something going to be ongoing? What's up with this? This is Blood Hunters.
It's a one shot, and it right, and it ties into the event at Marvel where the vampires are starting to take over the world because the permanent night that has been, the sun blocked out, has caused the permanent night. My particular story is about Hawkeye in New York. He's on the lam, and the police find him right when the vampires start taking over, but they decide that the vampires are probably a bigger priority than this guy who's got a bench warrant out for his arrest. So they let Hawkeye go, and he helps rally these random New Yorkers that he runs into on the street to help defend the city from vampires.
Oh, much like real life.
Yeah,
you can just walk around New York and gather people to do something. It's
kind of, that's what it's about. It's about like how New York it's sort of a love letter to New York in a way, because it's about how you go down the street, you're going to meet 10 incredibly different people with incredibly different backgrounds, and yet the one thing they all have in common is that they manage to live together in a city. They are able to sort of coordinate their lives around each other, and so they make actually a really effective team, even though none of the people have anything in common.
Yeah, New York,
which is like New York itself.
I've lived half my life in the New York area, in the immediate New York vicinity. and I've been all over this great land of ours, and all I can say, as have both of you, all I can say is New York is unique unto itself, and whether you make it a good thing or a bad thing, up to you. You can make it a great thing,
Yeah.
particularly if you've been very lucky at your previous career of robbing banks.
No, it's a much easier place to live if you've got money, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't aspire to live in New York. But I do love visiting there. To me, it feels like a slumber party, or you can go out for fried chicken at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
But
that's
the
funny.
good thing about slumber.
That just happened to me. I was telling my daughter
Oh, what?
at
See,
at 2 o'clock in the morning this morning. I said I want some fig bars, and if I was still living in Manhattan, I'd have them by now.
yeah.
I
You live like
wanna,
a king, in that you whatever you want to summon. I want Argentinian food, and there it is.
Right.
It appears.
There it is. There's a kosher Chinese, there are at least two kosher Chinese restaurants in Manhattan, one of which also serves, I think it's Chilean food. It's a South American food. And I'm just thinking, you don't see that everywhere.
Well, you also don't find the Cuban Chinese restaurants everywhere, but the Cuban Chinese restaurants in Brooklyn are fantastic.
There's a great one
I
in
believe that.
San Diego, just in case you happen to be going.
I want to talk to you about
the moment it sort of dawned on me. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Want to talk to me about
your
what?
story first. I want to hear your story first.
Oh, I was just going to say, the moment it dawned on me that New York was a different place than other cities I'd been to is I was there just visiting, and I was reading a copy of the New Yorker, and it occurred to me that I could actually go do any of the things in the going on about town section. And I was like, holy cow, I can go to these things. I'd always read about them, almost like a romance novel or something. It's like, oh, that must be nice.
No, they're right there.
Yeah, but you missed the time when everybody wore silk hats. Ah, those were good days.
I want to talk about this book just a little bit. Like, how does it work for you in? And we've talked before in other interviews we've done with you that you didn't grow up necessarily reading all the comics that a lot of your peers did, and like, did you do a bunch of research on John Jameson, and were you a fan of Dagger, and like, how did these characters get in your wheelhouse to work with?
Well, I didn't write that part. I just wrote the
so you just
the
okay. So
Hawkeye,
it's a multiple pieces
portion of the story.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of different stories. So I just wrote the story about Hawkeye. So I didn't do a lot of research on that. But my approach in general to these things is that I will ask the editor what I need to know. And I don't really want to know too much more than what I absolutely need to know to have it fit in with the event, because I don't want it to be this sort of tasteful homage. I don't want it to be this sort of ice skating routine where I'm trying to hit all the jumps and do the pirouette just right. I want it to be unique. I want it to be a little bit out there. And in a lot of ways, what I don't know makes it, I think, more unique and more interesting than what I do.
That's cool. That's fair. That's awesome. I like that.
Well, it's a great approach. So many people have done good work with Hawkeye, yet we don't think of Hawkeye as a major character. And I'm referring to the comic books here, not to the movies. They've done such great work with the character. It's all in there, yet he's never been able to come across the plate and be a major Marvel star. That's annoying to me.
Yeah.
How does
I think I like him a lot just
because
go ahead.
No, just because of that. I said.
Yeah, I like
putting words in your mouth.
Yeah. Okay. No, I like the fact that he's kind of a relatively minor character, as minor as you can be for an Avenger anyway, and also the fact that his power is kind of limited, because I think what's sort of good about Marvel and what the Marvel characters I really like aren't really, they're not really about the powers. They're about the people.
Right.
And so there's a lot to talk about Hawkeye. It has nothing to do with the fact that he could shoot a bow and arrow. And I like having the freedom to sort of populate the character beyond just like the archery.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone would probably, very few people would disagree that Matt Fraction's run on Hawkeye is probably the best anybody ever dealt with him. And are you disagreeing, Max?
It's not my favorite Hawkeye that I've ever. No. It's my favorite Hawkeye of all the Hawkeye I've ever read, and I haven't read a ton.
Again,
but that's the gold standard for sure.
Absolutely,
Mine too.
Mine too. But again, he's somebody who, he's always been there. Like he's always. I mean, my entire experience reading Marvel comics from the very beginning, like I remember, with from I think West Coast Avengers was when he reemerged again. There was a point where he had been, so West Coast Avengers he reemerged, and then there was another time. Then he kind of went away for a while. Then Bendis brought him back again in certain ways, but he is in a way the Aquaman of Marvel. He's always there. He's always got good stuff with him, but like nobody can carry him. Except for Matt. Like I said, that was
a very, yeah.
I know it's not
very
a
underhanded compliment.
It's not a compliment. It's not a compliment. I know exactly. Mike and I have had conversations about it.
No, you're right. I guess it's like an overhanded insult.
More like that. Yeah. I like that.
I like that too. Yeah.
So back with AWA, what's Death Ratioed? What's that about?
Death Ratio is about a future world where social media has replaced the government. So it's about a man who goes into a coma and wakes up 25 years in the future, and social media has basically replaced everything in terms of your value. And everyone has like a little neck bracelet, and if you get too many downvotes, the bracelet explodes and you're basically dead. So it's about him trying to navigate this new world where everything is based upon the approval of the people around you.
So a combination of Buck Rogers and Logan's Run.
Yeah, sorry. It's the death ratio is the little blue and red arrows would suggest.
Oh, okay.
Is about the ratio by which your dislikes outnumber your likes, and then your head explodes.
I want to take a minute, if you can, and get into as much as deeply as you can. How does something like this come about? Does AWA just come to you or Axel and just say, hey, what do you want to do? Do they say, hey, do they give you any parameters? Do you pitch them multiple things and they say, we'll take this one? What's that process like for you?
Yeah, a little of all the above. They do come to me and they say, hey, we're looking for some horror, or we're looking for some high concept sci-fi or something. Would you want to pitch something? And I'll usually like pitch them like 4 or 5 ideas, and out of those they'll maybe like 2, and in one, as we start talking about it, one will just sort of emerge. It's like, okay, this is the one that seems to have the most going on, and that's usually the one I end up doing. That's sort of how it's always worked with them, where I pitch them multiple ideas at the same time, and then one in the course of our conversation, one just sort of begins dominating the conversation.
Do you enjoy that process versus other people, or is it the same with other companies, or do you how do you feel about that?
No, they're all different, and I like the fact that they're all different, because it gives me different ways to like get things published, because there's certain things like Not All Robots was impossible to publish until I actually got to the point where I was able to sort of have multiple chances to sell Axel on it. Axel was the first one even like sort of intrigued by the idea. Everybody else kind of shut me down as soon as I'd say, what they'd say, I'd say, oh, it's about robots taking all the jobs, and it's this parable for toxic masculinity, and they'd be like, next. But he was the first one who was like, well, tell me more. Tell me what are the characters like, and that's a lot what allowed me to sort of turn first base and head to second with Axel on this. So I like the fact that they have different ways of evaluating. Other publishers, you just send them one pitch, one idea, and it's a strict up or down no vote. And I like that too, because then you don't have to waste a lot of time. You just kind of know where you stand with them based upon what they say. And those are generally the ones you want to pitch things you feel like maybe aren't your best work, but the ones you feel like this is my most easily described work, or this is the work I feel like I could sell someone on.
It's something that you can do in an elevator pitch. You got
right. There's the companies that where the elevator pitch is king. Yeah, where if the elevator pitch is it's gonna ride or die based on the elevator pitch, and who those companies are, and that's typically where you send those things where it's like, this is a great elevator pitch. I am not really sure how it's going to work. I'm not sure. I don't really have it all figured out, but I've got a great elevator pitch, and there's places like that. And AWA is kind of the opposite. It's kind of a place, well, I've got a lot to say about this, but the pitch sounds, frankly, kind of dumb. It sounds like a bad idea, but they'll talk to me about it, and then they'll begin to see the magic in it the way I do.
That's awesome.
We developed the question, Denny O'Neill and I, along the same way, along the same lines. We shared an office, and our office, unlike anybody else's, had a couch. So we could sit on the couch and just bullshit out stories. And, Denny wanted to write a series. I wanted Denny to write a series. Who would not? And well, what's out there? Nobody really wants to create anything. You want to use something that DC already owns. And I thought, the question would probably be a good place to go for Denny, because he could take it in a different direction than Steve Ditko, but still be truthful to the basic concept. And
not according to Steve.
Oh no, of course not. And we knew, and we knew that. We knew that. That's just an occupational hazard. And Steve and I are friends. We're friends.
Sure.
So it's, I get that. But that sort of evolutionary process, as an editor and as the property developer for big faceless, soulless corporations, that's the part I enjoy. Because you're not sure where it's going to go. You have no idea. And then you bring the artist in on the deal, and it goes in a whole different direction. And that's the beauty of comics to me, because it's sort of sequentially collaborative. So you don't really know exactly where you're going to go. And it's kind of cool to get it right.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, the best ideas, the best titles are not necessarily the ones where it's got the best idea, but the one where it's got the most idea, where there's a lot going on here. And depending upon which way we go with this and what everyone brings to it, it could be really good. It could be the best of all the possible ideas, as opposed to there are certain things where it's like, well, the idea is so clear, it's just all got to be done one way, and there's really not much room for improvement upon the initial pitch.
Well, we have more freedom today, and that's great, because in the two-dimensional days, the earliest days of comics, in the first couple decades, you didn't think that your audience would get it if you put that much work into it, if you put that much effort into it,
which is a shame.
Yeah, well, I think it was truthful. It was the truth for its time. Our time is different. I think our time is better, but I'm not 8 years old. I just, act that way.
This isn't. Is this
right.
a short
It's
piece?
important to recognize that.
Go ahead. Just
Yeah,
finish your
that's
story. Finish your thought.
actually again part of a bigger event.
Right.
I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, this is part of a bigger event where my piece is just a 20-page story about Bibbo Bibowski, sort of being a campaign volunteer for Perry White for mayor, which I loved writing this because not only because I get Steve Pugh on the art, but because it's a very slice of life story. It's not like a lot of battles and stuff. It's about Bibbo Bibowski trying to run a bar while answering the phone and trying to answer questions about Perry White's mayoral campaign, and the campaign's not going well at all. And it's very much about like the value of like grassroots politics, the value of like having people in politics who are there just because they care about their community, who just maybe aren't like slick politicians or aren't part of some, big, angry populist movement, but are just people who've been around and know what their community's like and want to see it survive.
And this is why I'm glad you're writing comic books.
Well, there's a lot of meat to your stories, and sometimes I get curious as to, have you plotted all of that out in advance and you're just going down the road that you already built, or are you just sort of making it up as you go along, which sounds like a bad idea, and I don't mean it that way. I mean it quite the opposite. Mark, hello, hi.
Yeah, it's again a little bit of both. I mean, I feel like I have an idea of the story, but it never, I always have like a little outline, and it never goes the way the outline says. I mean, the story will be generally
Right.
about the thing that the outline says it's going to be about. But once you get writing, you come up with better ideas than you had when you were pitching. And luckily, I've always had the liberty to go with the better ideas. To like, if what you told me turns out to be not what you wrote, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, you get the beginning and the middle and the end down so that you can sell the damn book, but you develop it as you go along, and every page is the next page in its development. Forever.
Yeah, I don't know how you even write otherwise. I don't know how you write without the freedom to sort of lie and change your mind about what you said you were going to write, because
you write it. You write 8 pagers.
Right.
You write short, very, very short stories.
Yeah. Granted, if you're the shorter the story, the more likely you are just to sort of stick to the script because there's not much room for innovation. But anything else, you are thinking about it more, I think, intelligently as you're actually in the weeds writing it. It's like a battle plan. It's like a general can draw up a battle plan on a map, in a nice office with an espresso machine. The battle's not going to go that way. The battle's going to go the way the guys on the ground know it has to go, because they see that there's a giant ditch where that wasn't on the maps, or they see that there's a machine gun nest that nobody knew about, and so they're going to change and adapt based upon the realities on the ground. And that's the way a writer should operate. I think it's like the realities on the ground being the ideas that come up and like ambush you as you're actually writing it.
Damn straight. The first thing they teach you in battle school is that battles never go the way they're planned. Never go the way they're planned. It's just,
it's sort of a nice idea. Ideally, everyone will hit these timetables and be in these, but they're not going to.
Batman could have never been Dwight Eisenhower. And by the way, I'm the first guy to point that out. Because Batman,
I don't think that's ever been said before in the English language.
No, that's right. Batman plans everything out. He's really, really anal retentive. He plans for everything. Nothing is a surprise. Dwight managed to kind of figure out, like, well, if all these guys are going over here, then maybe we should go over there.
Right.
So
That was the
best
big
laid plans.
advantage I think the Allies had in World War II is that they were much more receptive to information flowing from the bottom up, from like
Right.
soldiers on the ground saying we can't storm that position. There's machine guns there, and the NCOs telling the officers we're not going to do it. It's suicide. You need to come up with a different way to get to that objective. And then the officers telling the generals, it's like we need to reassess the strategy because the reality on the ground's not supporting it, which is much more conducive to success than, well, this is what the general said, do it, and if you all die, that's too bad.
Right. It's like, hey, folks, look, we got a blizzard out here. It's not in our plans. What do we do?
Since we're talking about the way that your stories evolve and develop, am I right in that Sonia is the longest that you wrote in one story? Is that the most issues?
Currently, although Second Coming will surpass it.
Oh, good. That's fantastic. Yeah. That's great news. But how far in advance from when you started, how much did you accomplish beyond what you had set out to?
In Red Sonja, or
in Sonia.
Yeah, well, in Red Sonja, we didn't really have an idea, like an endpoint of how far we wanted to go. It's just one of the things that sort of appealed to me was the fact that it was sort of open-ended. Yeah, just keep going. So, but it became kind of clear that I felt like the original story was going to probably peter out after, or that what I had sort of plotted in my head was going to peter out after like 24 issues. So at some point that became the end point. But yeah, I think it went on longer than I imagined it would, just because the ideas just sort of expanded in water like a sponge.
Have they collected that as like an omnibus or anything? Because they should, because that is.
I would love that. They've all 4 volumes that I wrote are out. They're all published, but not as an omnibus. And that would be my goal for the Red Sonja title, would be like if I just had my own Red Sonja Queen's Gambit sort of omnibus with just my stories in it.
Well, then send a link to this interview to Barucci and see if he goes for it.
Yeah, no, I need to have a conversation with Barucci because he's got the rights to the Flintstones now too. So I think including the reprint rights. So I need to talk to him.
When did that happen?
Crossover.
When did I miss that? By the way,
well, Warner Brothers, I don't know what they were thinking, but they sold them about 6 months ago, I think, without really telling anybody.
Yeah.
No, they didn't really, because they figured no one would care. I mean, what?
I care. I've been screaming about it.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
I'm not very happy with it. Marie Javins, I think, was very apologetic. She was not consulted. Don't send her an email.
I do not blame editors for corporate decisions. But I was surprised.
That's the point I want to make. It's purely a corporate decision. It was not DC.
Thank
it was
you,
Warner
Bob.
Brothers.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Because I could spend days talking about Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I understand. There's something in the back behind you on the top wall that also relates to that. So, because I was surprised when I saw David Pepos' announcement that he was doing Space Ghost. I'm like, at Dynamite, what? And
I mean, I would love to read a David Pepos Space Ghost. But yeah, it was we were all kind of like flat-footed by the fact that like, oh, Dynamite's got the rights to
the
Hanna-Barbera stuff now.
Let's do that. I mean, like, let me tell you, there is I don't know. I don't believe, and I could be wrong because I'm a lot younger than Mike, and I say that gleefully, but I don't know that there's ever been a time when licensed cartoony toy comics have been as well written as they and created as they are right now with what's going on
I
in
think
the
that might be
Energon
part of the
universe.
reason. Oh yeah, with
Well,
like
there's that.
Transformers but I think that might be one of the reasons why Dynamite, made an offer on the Hanna-Barbera stuff, because it seems to be a moment right now with the GI Joe and the, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Transformers. They seem to be, that's
What Mad Cave's going to start doing with Gatchaman, and they're going to bring Black Flash
yeah,
Gordon, and Dick
that seems
Tracy,
to be the desirable sort of storytelling fodder now.
which is great because there's not everything's not Batman, Superman, it's Captain America, which is good. There are more topics for people who want to work for licensed companies to go to more than just Marvel and DC.
Yeah, and I think also the question is like, well, if there's superhero fatigue, but there's still this big nostalgia, and people want to read stories about characters they know and love. Where's the next destination for that? And the answer, at least in the short term, seems to be, well, the toys and cartoons that we grew up with.
What goes around comes around, and we go through these periods. Sometimes these periods last a long time, of doing not heroic fantasy and certainly not so much superheroes. I mean, if not for Dell Comics and Harvey and Archie, Marvel and DC would not have survived the 1940s. They would not have survived to the 1950s. They needed the licensed material, and if you look at the industry advertising, not the house ads, but the industry advertising, you'll see that DC promoted the hell out of their Jerry Lewis and Bob Hope comics to the independent distributors.
When I was at DC's vault or their library, I was shocked how many Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin comics. There was like a whole shelf almost of like Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin comic books, and Bob Hope and.
Yeah, and they had a lot of other, tie-ins, radio shows like Mr. District Attorney and A Date with Judy and things like that. It's not a new thing for comics, and like all of history, we would do well to be more respectful of our history and to understand there's no need to panic. There's a lot of stuff that's been done that we could do from a contemporary standpoint.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. So while we're on the topic, when are you going to write for Archie? Because we need to get Jamie and get her to. You need to be doing something there.
Drop me a line. You know what I would like to do. I would like to do a Veronica comic, but it would be like Veronica as like a mean girl, but as a good mean girl, as a mean girl.
Dan Parent has to
mean
draw.
Girl you root for. Okay, I'm down.
Dan's going to be on the
2
show
weeks. In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Pitch it to him.
I am such. We might. I am such a fan of his convention work, and the drawings and stuff. Yeah, Dean.
Yeah, Dean. Yeah, everyone.
Nice lady.
That was funny.
Or we can get Dean to draw your Archie story. That'll be even better.
I would take Dean in a heartbeat. I would take Dean on anything.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get Dean in here soon too, by the way.
Well, he pops up anyhow, and it's wonderful.
We love him. We love him so much. So we need to get that. So I didn't hear. I messed. I don't know if I was not paying attention, but the Veronica story is. Again, tell me this.
She's a mean girl, but she's a mean girl you can get behind. Like she's mean to the right people, and she's like taking down people who are like, need to be taken down. And it's sort of like her story, just sort of like gliding too cool for school through Riverdale. Yeah, let's do it. I think this is a Moose series. That would be awesome. I would definitely do a Moose mini series with Dean.
But Archie editorial decisions being made on the
right. This pitch is writing itself, I think.
That's right. Work in a real moose.
Isn't there already? I thought there was a moose story on the way, if I remember correctly. I forgot who was writing it, but I think there is like a moose. I'm going to screw it up if I try to guess which creator's doing it, but I thought there was a moose story that had been
We'll make
greenlit.
sure
We could do moose too. Meese. We could do meese.
The character. That's right. The character.
Shirtless moose. Yes.
Probably longer than I have. So it's really, it's about time. Dilton Doily had his own miniseries. What's wrong with Moose? Let's do a Moose series. Come on.
I would do a Moose series. I like Moose.
Yeah.
So is this is a one shot on a Bad Day one shot, or is this a new volume of one?
No, it's a whole new volume. Yeah, we got 6 issues.
My bad.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, so it's a whole new series.
Oh, fantastic!
That is a terrific cover. If I were on the newsstand,
there's a lot to explain going on here. That's a peculiar island. That's President John Adams, and a beaver faced penguin, which are indigenous to Peculiar Island.
Yeah.
If there was, it would be. Well, Mike would probably faint if there was a gorilla on this cover, but otherwise, it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah. No, this is a part of the story that my collaborator Bryce Ingman is writing. He's writing the story of Emperor King and Amazing Adams on Peculiar Island, and I'm writing the half about the chandelier, where he loses the intellectual property rights to the chandelier, and so then he has to suffer through the chandelier being used in like ads for hemorrhoid cream and things because he doesn't own the rights to his own character anymore.
I am so glad that company exists and that they employ you.
Oh, they're. I don't know what my career would look like without Ahoy, because they're really the only people out there that actually want funny comics, and they've done so many of my series that, like, in fact, My Bad is sort of a lot of the plots I write in My Bad are things that like DC told me point blank, never in a million years will we publish this story. So I changed it to the chandelier instead of Batman, and now I can publish it at Ahoy. But yeah, a lot of it is just like these are the stories. I think that the people who aren't aware of Ahoy need to check it out, because a lot of these stories are just stories you would never find anywhere else.
Also, it really helps if the people in editorial management get you.
Yeah.
And you get them. Now, those guys have a terrific sense of humor. They're very good writers. They're very good editors. And they're really good with guys like you.
Yeah, I don't know. I really lucked into it. The big reason why I was able to get in was because I was at a New York Comic-Con, I think in 2018 when they were first starting, and I saw Stuart Moore in the lobby of my hotel, and so I just went up to say hello, and he happened to be having coffee with Hart Seeley and Tom Peyer, and they're in the business of forming Ahoy Comics. They're at in the lobby, and I just happened to walk in the middle of it, and so then Stuart introduced me, and we got to talking, and we decided we wanted to like do something together.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic, and thankfully, a million moms got their hair across their butt, as a New Yorker would say, and now we have Second Coming at Ahoy.
Yeah, no, the timing couldn't have been better, because like Second Coming was, the villagers with the pitchforks were going after Second Coming like less than a few months later. So it was nice to be able to like jump ship and take it to Ahoy that they were there.
Right, I remember that. I had texted you right when the news about DC canceling it happened, and you're like, "Hang on, we got something in the fire. We're gonna be okay." But
it was better than okay too. Because they allowed me to do more issues, and they allowed me to put more pages at issue 1. I think the series is only as good as it is because we took it to Ahoy, if we'd left it at DC, they probably, or Vertigo, they would have probably made us take half of it out and water it down. And then after we got through with the first initial 6 issues, they would have said, thank you for your service. Never come back to us with this again.
Right.
But Ahoy was.
That's assuming
I don't have time for your blasphemy.
That's assuming they didn't cut it back from 6 to 4.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It would probably get
know?
canceled. And I don't even really blame DC for that. It was just the heat in the kitchen was too hot. I mean, it probably never should have been approved in the first place. But yeah, I do think that it really benefited from going to Ahoy.
Absolutely.
I saw you say something about writing Prez. What's up with that?
Well,
or can we not talk about this yet?
No, you can talk about it. I'm going to talk about it, so I guess we might as well. But they're re-releasing the original Prez in a new sort of YA format, but they're re-releasing it with the Catwoman election special, and then me and Ben are doing a new short to add on to it. So there will be a new story. Plus, they allowed me to go through and sort of like edit the lettering, so I was able to sort of cut out references to Twitter and also like update some of the jokes. So it really does feel kind of like a new book, and I really hope people. I was kind of surprised when I went through, because this was the first comic book that I ever wrote, and I had some sort of bad memories of it being canceled. But I was really kind of surprised when I started going in there and sort of weeding through the issues, how much I really enjoyed it, and how much it reminded me how much fun I had writing it and creating it, and what absolute, how lucky I was to be able to work on it with Ben and Marie and Mark Morales and Brittany Holzer. How lucky it was that this just sort of fell into my lap. And also, I think just what a good comic it turned out to be. Even though I didn't really know what I was doing, I felt like we fumbled through it pretty well.
You learned pretty quick, I'll tell you that much. So thanks for that.
Well, I had a lifetime of futility in a whole other literary field before then, so I was well prepared.
Well, sure.
Well, the YA comics, some of them have just gargantuan print runs, and I'm assuming since everybody's doing more and more of them, that the sell-throughs are good. So you're writing for and rewriting for an audience that's not familiar with your work. There's probably 50,000 people who are going to see that book who have not seen or cared about a regular traditional comic book.
Absolutely. And I think that this is where the writing on the wall is. It's like this: if you want to sell comics in the future, you're selling to younger readers, and you're not selling superhero books. You're selling books about stories they can relate to, about people their age, talking about things that mean something to them.
One of the things we were touching on earlier, and I kind of thought about this at the time, and we've kind of come around to it, is that what Mike was saying about how DC and Timely, in the 40s wouldn't have made it without the Harveys and whatnot, and even into the 50s and stuff like that. And I think that's what the YA stuff is now, where it's giving, particularly DC. I think DC has really leaned into it a little bit more than, I don't know how Marvel is doing that. They're kind of adjusting their regular runs for that, but like DC is very much, and I know, and I've spent a lot of time talking to Cami Garcia about what she's been doing and how particular she was about the way she needed to do what she's doing, and it's been very successful. Like that kind of stuff is opening things to other people. We've had other people on the show who we know are working at with YA stuff for DC, and I think that's really, for a company that doesn't always make smart decisions, I think it's a really smart decision. Because
I agree. I think this is like really sort of where the future of the comics industry is, where this is where the consumers are, and the more they could do to like sort of get their product in front of that readership, the better they're going to be long term.
Yeah, now DC has made a lot of smart decisions in the last few years. I'm not sure I could say the same of Discovery or even the studio, but the folks at DC, the editorial folks, have their minds pretty much in the right place, and they're looking around. They see what's going on. That YA thing is wonderful. It may be the future, but it certainly will be a big part of the immediate future.
Right.
Yeah, well,
And,
I
and
think
it
that
allows us to.
I know a lot of the people at DC, and they're all, I mean, they all really care about these comics. There's no one at DC who approaches it cynically. It's like, well,
Right.
just crap it out. There's no one like that there that I'm aware of. I remember when Warner Brothers was bought out by AT&T, like someone explained to me, like, well, AT&T to them, it's like if like a really big hit DC movie, it's a stock worth billions and billions of dollars. So a big hit DC movie might improve their stock price by like 1 penny. In a gargantuan hit comic would improve their stock price by like 1/100th of 1 penny. So why should they care about any of this? Unfortunately, the bigger the buyouts get, the more the bigger the owners become of the comics industry. That's going to be more and more the thinking. It's like, well, I don't care about the profits you can make me. I care about controlling the costs across the corporation. They're going to be more interested in layoffs and shelving things and taking tax breaks than they are about like actually making things that do well in the market. But it's not for lack of trying on DC's part.
Oh, absolutely. And there's also an opportunity with these guys. It's a small opportunity, but you can use it. You can wedge yourself a bigger one. If there's no way in the world you can ever publish anything that those guys will notice on the bottom line. And when DC was part of Warner Brothers, we weren't in the annual report. They barely mentioned us. It's that you can't lose that much either. If your really nifty project is, I don't want to say a bomb, but is losing money, it's just not breaking even, you have a chance. The company isn't going to go bankrupt over your book. You have a chance to save it or to fix it or to stick with it.
That's the way I would approach it.
Yeah, you have an opportunity.
And I think, that's a perfectly valid argument. And ideally, that's the way they would think about it. Well, this costs us next to nothing. It's not going to have any long-term impact on our stock price. Why not just take some chances? Maybe we'll create something big out of it. Unfortunately, most of the people who get into positions of power there, that's not how they got into power thinking. They got into power thinking about like, how do I lower risk? How do I do the sure thing that's gonna get everyone a good quarterly bonus, not the risky thing that might get me fired, but which will set the company itself up for long-term dividends 20 years from now. What do I care what happens to the company 2 years from now if I'm not there? I think that's the logic behind most corporate management, not just in entertainment, but in everything.
But particularly in the movie business, lesser extent TV before streaming. But that's absolutely true. You can how bad can you bomb if you have home video and you have streaming and you have cable and you have
you can bomb pretty bad.
Yeah.
Well, here's how
you
bomb. You bomb because it's all borrowed money and you can't return it to the bank fast enough. That's how you bomb.
Yeah, I don't think people fully appreciate just how much the game has been rigged in favor of the capital class. They figured this out. They're not going broke anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. They can make really bad stuff though.
Yeah, no, what's on their mind is not like, oh, am I going to go broke from this, or is this going to like destroy the company? It's like, am I going to get like a 10% quarterly bonus, or am I going to get like a 15% quarterly bonus based on, that's their incentive range.
Right. Here's the thing. The the hand wringing and running for the exits that all of the film bros have over what's going on with Marvel, and that they're not you know exploding banks every time they put out a new movie anymore. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. So, like, more like it's all perception in the public sphere, but it's not reality in the economic sphere. Like, they're still making money. They're not.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's
yeah,
not.
even a bomb makes money eventually.
I mean, yeah. But they're just not making good stuff. Like, some. That's not true.
Yeah, and
There's
with the tax
some
incentives
things.
and
Yeah. Oh, there. Let's throw that in. Yeah, because it's all free money. I mean, it's all a free thing. The amount of money that they get back from what they put in, they made it for free almost. But we've now. So we've got two things. One is I wanted to say that we've now come full circle, because we started out, at the beginning of the show before we brought you in, talking about the rise of all of these small publishers or comics brands, and the opportunities that's there for all the other people. But now that we've started talking about movies, I want Mark. We've started this thing. We're trying to do it weekly. We have a question of the day, and this week, today's question, I took and I went like this. I wanted to do something kind of. I don't know if it's going to be positive or not, but what was the most impactful experience you remember in a movie theater? Like, what was the time when you were in a movie theater? Go ahead. You can go first.
I have an answer that is like immediately comes to mind, and it was when I saw Jurassic Park, and I think it was '94 when it came out, and
Yes.
I went with my sister, and we went to the theater with the big screen in Eugene, Oregon, where I grew up. It was like this. It was originally this old golden age of Hollywood theater, so huge screen, really loud volume, and nobody had ever seen anything like that before. Nobody had ever seen dinosaurs that realistic, and we were sitting in like the 10th row, and they just looked gargantuan, and it was so loud, and these dinosaurs were roaring all over the screen. And at one point, about half an hour into the movie, I looked down and my sister was cowering underneath the chair. She had her head in her hands. She couldn't take it. And I thought at that moment, like, this is the best movie experience I've ever had in a movie theater, because it was so visceral. It's like when they started making films and people weren't used to the technology, and they would show footage on like a bed sheet of like a train coming at the camera, and people would jump out of the way in the movie theater because their minds weren't used to the technology. Their minds hadn't sort of accepted that this is an illusion yet. It was as close to that experience of like, this is real and it's happening to me right now, that I've ever had in a movie theater, where the illusion was that palpable.
When Winsor McKay toured with his vaudeville act, which consisted of a Gertie the Dinosaur cartoon that he animated by hand. He drew every frame, and he interacted live on stage with the cartoon, right? His audience, and this is like the 1910s, some members of his audience didn't understand that was animation. They thought it was real.
Right.
Now,
and he was really talking to it.
Right. And now there's no way in the world I can wrap my head around any part of that. But I believed it immediately, and I've done some work on that since. I've looked it up. I'm a big McKay fan, so I've read everything. And yeah, there were people out there that thought this is phony. It's not a movie. Yeah.
Okay. I had an experience like similar to that, weirdly enough, at a Google Dolls show, where a few years ago we went to see the Google Dolls, and there was a screen that current day John Resnick was talking to a younger version of John Resnick, like on the video screen. It was very, very weird. Like he couldn't have recorded, like they had to, like, it must have video aged him down and do this thing, but it was a very weird kind of experience. Like you're you're having that. And I can just imagine that experience to someone not understanding how recorded film works, where you can play it back and talk in the build in the second, the delays so that you can respond to an argument or a conversation like that. That must have been amazing.
We
There
have an
was,
entire.
oh,
I'm sorry. We have an
Go
entire
ahead.
political. We have an entire political party that has not understood how videotape works or has worked for the last 25 years. The Republicans put Jon Stewart in business. And they don't understand. They say, "Oh no, I never said that." And then John will go up there with like 15 clips of that person saying that. And this is like the 21st century. They don't understand how videotape works. Screw you. I'm not changing my habits.
What were you going to say, Mark?
Oh, well, I was going to say that when Andy Kaufman was alive, he would tour, and he would sometimes do this thing where he would ostensibly the comedy would be over. He's like, "That's the end of the show." He's like, "But seriously, now on a serious note, I want to tell you all that I'm an avid film collector. I'm a big student of film history, and I recently came into possession of actual footage of the Lincoln assassination. And it was when film was in its infancy, and no one's seen this before, but I thought I would show it to you tonight. So I want to show you this authentic, rare film of Abraham Lincoln being assassinated." And then he would show the footage from Birth of a Nation, because there's actually a Lincoln assassination scene in Birth of a Nation, and it's grainy and black and white. And if you didn't know better, you might think this is the actual footage of the Lincoln assassination.
Right.
So he shows that, and like people were like fainting and crying, and then he like led the entire theater in like a prayer afterwards. but it's very much about how you set up people's expectations, and then the illusion works off those. The illusion works off people's expectations, not necessarily what the how good the illusion is, but just how fake the expectations are.
The second thing they teach you in improv class is how to commit to a character, how to commit to a part, how to commit to a role. The first thing they teach you is, of course, always affirm. After that, it's how to commit. And nobody has ever committed to anything ever on any level the way Andy Kaufman did. He was all in. And to this very day, I'm sure we can find thousands of people who think, yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, because if anyone were to do that, I'm not saying he did. I don't think he did.
No,
but if anyone were to like fake dying of cancer and then stay faked for like 40 years or whatever before reemerging, it would have been him.
But he would come back as Jim Morrison.
Mike? What's yours? What's your most impactful experience you remember in a movie?
Oh, this is going to scare the bejesus out of even you,
even me.
It reveals more than I think I've ever revealed on this program before. I was in Toronto, a wonderful city for movies and books. This is around 1970 something. And there's this movie that was running in Toronto that they hadn't opened in the United States because they couldn't find a distributor. It was made by Ken Russell, and it was called The Devils. And it was a very emotionally heavy, particularly if you're religious, because it's all about the Catholic Church. It is a very, very heavy movie. And the lines to get into that downtown theaters on Yonge Street, if you know Toronto, were around the block. I mean, people were just dying to see this movie. And it was standing room only when I sat down. And by the time the movie was over, and I was I don't want to say I was enjoying the movie, but I was totally involved with the movie. I turned around and I see that about 2/3 of the audience left during the movie. Gets better. And I went out to the lobby because that's how you leave. And the lobby was full of pregnant women and nuns.
What? Why?
Well, the nuns obviously were ill-informed. The pregnant women, I get that. I get that. Totally. It's a really interesting movie. I think it's a very good movie. But it's not like anything you've ever seen or thought of before. About 8-9 months later, they finally found a distributor in the States.
And how did it do?
It did okay. I mean, it wasn't a big distributor. They weren't exactly playing it at all the drive-ins.
Sure.
Because if you were driving down the road with that up on the drive-in screen, you'd get into an accident.
That's crazy. I have two things. One is more recent, and I think it was just an interesting thing at the time. I would say that the experience at the end of Avengers Infinity War, when that movie ended, was weird, because it ended and everybody just sat there in silence and then got up and left, because spoilers, everybody was dead, or half of everybody was dead, and it was just over. But it was the weirdest experience, just that it was just, there was so much, like, people couldn't believe, and we saw it the first weekend, so we weren't spoiled. It wasn't out there. You didn't know exactly what was happening. And it was just a weird experience. And I remember that being one of the weirdest experiences. It was probably my most emotional or like impactful thing was, I remember seeing Dead Poets Society in the theater. And the person I was with was in tears, just soaking wet in tears from by the end of that movie, which it's one of my favorite movies. I love that movie. I actually had to defend in court that I let my kids see that movie.
Really?
I did.
That definitely sounds like an impactful movie.
This was not at the, I mean, like, it was much later. It was much later. It wasn't that time, but like we had watched it later. But I love the movie. Like I said, I think it's an important film for young people to see at a certain point in your life. You need to understand the things that went on in that film. And I did have to like testify that I let my 12-year-old watch that movie. And there is a scene, which probably no one even remembers, but there's a scene where somebody's reading, the Nwanda is reading a poem on the back of a Playboy pinup, and that was what I had to explain. Anyway, that. Exactly, of course, but anyway, that's not the point. But the most interesting part about, besides the fact of loving that movie so much, and the person being next to me just couldn't even breathe at how much tears they were in. It came out the same time that Rattle and Hum was also out, so I could hear it rattle and hum while I was watching Dead Poets Society, and I had seen Rattle and Hum already, so I was like, I had both things going on at the same time.
When I was a small child, probably around 8, maybe 10, I saw Triumph of the Will.
Okay.
That was probably a mistake. Now I think I've overcome that, but that was probably a mistake. It certainly is the reason why I'm not that big a Leni Riefenstahl fan.
Well, that's the reason. I think
unlike everyone else who just dies for Lenny Riefenstahl.
Oh my goodness. Why do you do this? Like at the end, you end on these really weird tangents.
That would be a great,
We
like
end
if
with
anyone
no-
asks you your opinion about Lenny Riefenstahl, say, well, not a fan of her early work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because of Steve Ditko.
Yeah. Oh, she did some
Okay.
great stuff with nature documentaries, but
Well, in Amazing Fantasy 15, the first Spider-Man story, they had a scene where Peter Parker is off stage at the Ed Sullivan clone show, and the advice that he got was always leave them begging for more. So to answer your question, Bob, it's because of Steve Ditko.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this crazy show. Thank you, Mark, for being here. We're going to do this
My
again
pleasure.
because it's so great having you on the show.
anytime.
And there's so much good stuff coming. We're so excited.
Yeah.
This is I am really excited too for all the stuff that's in the pipeline. So much I can't even really talk about yet, but
Yeah, I'm sure.
I feel like it's going to be a good year.
Well, when
Good.
you showed us what you have coming up, you know, you think, okay, fine. I've been reading comics since I was 2, and that was in the 1800s, and yet I'm looking forward to all this.
Thank you.
Everyone.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Again, next week we will have Cecil Castellucci on the show. We will talk about all kinds of stuff. We're
Who's
gonna talk
also
about
great.
her. She is. Well, you know, we were gonna have
big fan of Cecil.
we were gonna have dinner that night in New York.
Yeah,
the three
you're
of us,
right. You're
but
right.
We missed it. We'll definitely have to do that someday. Yeah, we're gonna talk to her about her fellowship that she just completed last year, which in I think she was in Belgium or Brussels, somewhere in Europe. She's always in Europe. It was Denmark. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that.
It's all Europe to me.
It's all Europe. She's always in Europe. And the following week, please come back. We'll have Dan Parent. The week after that, we have Jeremy Hahn scheduled to be on the show.
Cool.
So we are going to be here for a while. Again, anyone who hasn't been to popculturesquad.com, please do so. We have plenty of really cool articles and interviews and other things going on. You can click there also and subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll find out what you missed in the past week, going forward all weeks in the future. Thanks, Dean. We'll talk to you soon. We're going to get Dean on the show because he's got stuff to talk about, I think. Thank you, Mark, for being here. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to pull you out, and we're going to close down the show. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much, pal. Thank you.
All right, Michael. Next week we will be here again, same time, same bat channel, and I'm looking forward to all the stuff we have coming on.
Me too. This is the furthest in advance I've known our schedule ever.
I'm trying. I'm pushing beyond that. We're close to booking the next guest after that, so we're going every week.
Also, I should point out to our audience that you do not tell me the question of the week in advance.
No, that's the fun part.
So it's just totally off the cuff.
Yeah, we also are going to talk. This is a tease, but we are definitely going to talk about Star Wars next week because Cecil is probably one of the biggest Star Wars fans I know.
Star Wars.
Yes. Star Wars.
I've heard of that.
She's one of the biggest Star Wars fans, but also one of the biggest Star Wars critics. So I love talking to her about Star Wars, and we
should get into an interesting conversation. Then.
I expect that. Anyway, everybody else, come back and join that conversation. We'll, I'm sure, touch on the EC news again that we talked about earlier in the show, and everybody have a great week.
Thanks for coming, folks. See you next week.